Hey, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. Either way, I'm Nick, and I talk about things that I like. Today, that's 5 more cozy mobile games you should be checking out if you're a mobile gamer, and you're looking for some new games to pass the time. First up on our list is one that you may have already heard about. Infinity Nikki is a game I've covered a few times now on the channel. For those of you returning, if you've already heard all of this, feel free to skip to the next chapter. But if you're new here, let me tell you why you should absolutely be checking out Infinity Nikki. Infinity Nikki is a free-to-play game that is wholly about fashion and dress-up. Now, I personally never got into dress-up games when I was younger for, gender norm reasons. However, now that I have, there is absolutely no turning back. If you're like me and a bit unsure about the whole dress-up game genre, Infinity Nikki is the perfect game to start with. So much of this game feels like playing a Nintendo classic like Breath of the Wild, and as viewers of my other videos covering it have so helpfully pointed out, that's because the game's director, Kentaro Tominaga, used to work for Nintendo, specifically on Breath of the Wild. Now, I want to be clear, games are made by teams of people. I think it's unfair to attribute a game or any piece of media's entire direction and feel to a single individual. Yes, even the director. Just because Kentaro worked on Breath of the Wild and is now directing this game doesn't mean that the way the game feels to play is solely because of his involvement. I'm sure it had a big influence, but it's not just because of him. That being said, if you do like the exploration and story aspects of Breath of the Wild, this is going to be a great game to try out. And whereas you can't play the Breath of the Wild games on your phone, you sure can with Infinity Nikki. Before we talk about what that's like, though, I'll give you a quick rundown on what the actual gameplay is. You start out as a stranger in a strange land, if you will, and this strange new world specifically is called Flourish. Now, the whole game centers around your wardrobe and your ability to put together an outfit. Most of the time you spend in the game will be spent wandering around the world, discovering what secrets it might hold. While you're exploring, you can find all kinds of things. The game is absolutely peppered with collectibles and different resources and currencies you can use to craft or buy different clothes, which you can use to change up your look. There are also styling challenges, which are kind of like Pokémon battles, but you have to create an outfit to fit the specific challenge and get a certain amount of points to win. The game isn't all exploration and styling, though. There are also short combat encounters. Nothing particularly difficult, but they offer a bit of a break from the walk around and collect things flow that the game has normally. You're given a few ability outfits which allow you to do a few different things. One allows you to double jump and safely float back down. One lets you shoot a projectile and take care of enemies. Another lets you catch critters, and plenty more. These outfits are minimally stylable, and that's a gripe that I personally have with these ability outfits, though I recognize others don't seem to have the same issues that I do with them, so your mileage may vary. My logic is just that because it's a dress-up and styling game, I feel like you should be able to style the outfits that you use for your abilities, but maybe that's just me. Either way, those ability outfits let you complete different environmental challenges. These usually reward you with either a win star, which is the currency that allows you to progress the skill tree, glimmers, which are the in-world money, or diamonds, which allow you to interact with the gacha mechanics in the game, and we will be talking about those in a second. For now, though, let's talk about the mobile version and how it feels to play. Right off the bat, I'm very impressed with the fidelity available on mobile. Now, keep in mind, I haven't really been in the mobile gaming scene since probably like 2010, and back then the best we could expect was like Flappy Bird or Angry Birds. Though there were a couple from Gameloft I remember loving called Gangstar and Gangstar Rio, which were basically like GTA Vice City ripoffs. But either way, this kind of fidelity was unthinkable back then, and I'll be honest, it did kind of blow my mind that it's available just right in the palm of your hand. That being said, the performance I found to be middling at best. Now, obviously, this is going to vary depending on your hardware, and I was playing on a Pixel 9, which is not exactly known for its position as a graphical powerhouse. But aside from just the performance, I found the experience of playing on mobile to be subpar. Now, some of that might be able to be fixed by using a controller and propping up your phone or one of those controllers that holds your phone, but regardless, I found inputs to be messy and significantly more difficult to use than its PC counterpart. And frankly, I don't think you should have to buy a whole nother accessory and make room for it in order to enjoy a mobile game. At that point, you might as well just carry around a Steam Deck or something. So I do take away points for the mobile game when compared to the PC version. However, if you're a hardcore mobile gaming person and you play the higher budget games like Genshin Impact on your phone, I'm sure you won't have any issues with it. It's no worse than any of those. I personally just don't like it when a game that's being made for mobile isn't designed around and for the mobile experience. I don't love having a solid portion of my screen covered by my fingers, though I think you'll probably know if that's something that'll bother you. So now, on to those gacha mechanics. If I'm being honest, they're far better than other mobile games I've played. Yes, there is currency that you can buy if you feel so inclined, and there are gambling mechanics, but as I said, you earn the currencies to participate in those just by playing the game. And I was able to rack up a solid amount of diamonds just by exploring the world, and that allowed me to get a really solid, probably 30 attempts at a resonance outfit, which is their main gacha mechanic. To be clear, I don't love that they do lock a few outfits behind the resonance system, and yes, I would have much preferred that they allow those items to be either purchased with in-game currencies or crafted. However, the number of outfits they do this with is minimal. Right now, I think it's about maybe 10 max, and they aren't by any means necessary to play the game. Ultimately, as I said in my previous videos on this game, the gacha stuff is probably as good as you could hope for from a free-to-play game. The devs do actually need to be paid, and it's a game that lives in servers, so it has ongoing cost. Personally, I think it could be much worse, and I've never personally felt like I needed to pay any real money, even once. However, if you know that you do have an issue with that, maybe skip this one. All in all though, it's a brilliant title, and if you're even a bit interested in fashion, dress up, or anything like that, you should absolutely check it out. But Infinity Nikki isn't the only game on this list to have a mobile and PC release. Assemble is a game about, well, assembling things. The character you play as just moved to a new town, and you're looking for work as a repair person. The whole game centers around figuring out what's wrong with a particular object and then fixing it. While the mechanics are rather simple and the overall game itself is quite simple, it is absolutely an engaging game to play. While I think they certainly could have gotten away with simply giving you the puzzles and letting you figure them out, they add to it in a really cool way, with including a bit of story and background for each job. Plus, there are kind of stakes to your jobs, because while you can't actually fail a job, the protagonist is trying to start a whole new business, so it's important for them to build a good reputation in town. It actually feels really Ghibli-inspired in that way. There are a lot of thematic similarities to my absolute favorite Ghibli movie, Kiki's Delivery Service, and the game overall has a really relaxing lo-fi aesthetic, which I really love. It's a simple game, and a game I can absolutely recommend to anyone who is a bit of a tinkerer themselves. It kind of offers a bit of wish fulfillment. The idea that you could move away from your real life and onto a small town and just tinker and repair things for a living. I don't know about you, but that's like peak cozy for me. Small, Italian-esque town, simple analog technology, and working with your hands. There are a few things that I would call more cozy than that. And the mechanics themselves are great too. It always feels really good to open these objects and take a look at what's inside. This is, I think, a really great example of a game that works brilliantly on both mobile and desktop. Where Infinity Nikki kind of struggles in my eyes, this game absolutely nailed it. The tactile nature of using the screwdriver and other repair tools works really well in concert with the touchscreen experience. And I never felt like the screen was crowded or like the game was struggling to find a balance between the different devices it could be used on. This is a really tight experience, which if you're like me and you enjoy tinkering with and fixing things, I think is absolutely worth your time. Now the first 4 levels are free, but if you want to continue on after that, and I suspect you will, you'll need to shell out the $8 they charge for it. Though, while that is a considerable amount for a mobile game, I think it's absolutely worth it. You're basically getting a fully ported PC game on your phone, and frankly I think it's worth every penny. But speaking of games that are worth the money, Color Puzzle is a free color matching puzzle game. That's really all there is to it. You're given a grid of squares, which are all slightly different hues, and you have to put them in the correct order. The puzzles are generally laid out so that if you take a second to read the situation, you can figure out what the base colors are, and based off of that, you can figure out where all the different colors are supposed to go. For example, in the first couple levels, they keep it fairly simple with only a small number of squares to choose from, and the base colors are all in the 4 corners. You then have to figure out how the other tiles should be arranged in order to have a correct transition between the base colors. In these early levels, they only have you moving a relatively small number of tiles, but as the puzzles get more difficult, you start having to move more and more tiles around, and it gets a lot more difficult to read the pattern right off the bat. This game is such a cool idea, and I don't know if it's been done before, but this being the first time I've personally seen it, I'm extremely impressed. It's such a cool idea to derive the difficulty from a player's understanding of color, or just a more abstract concept in general. Sure, you can just try switching tiles around and try and figure out what looks good when combined with the tiles immediately on either side, but if you come in knowing how colors mix and how they'll affect each other, it makes it way more fulfilling to solve the puzzles. This is one of the few times my color theory classes have actually helped me in my real life. Now, it's not particularly consequential, but it's really cool to apply knowledge that you have in the back of your head and actually have it help you out. And after trying this game out, it got me thinking about what other kinds of interesting puzzles you could make with this kind of idea. Like maybe a music-based one where you have to put together a scale or song. I mean, I know jack all about music, but I feel like this could be a cool idea and an interesting direction to take this kind of game and apply it to another audience. Oh, and they also let you create your own puzzles, which is just such a cool feature to have in a puzzle game. I feel like most of the puzzle games I've played are so tightly designed that if they gave you the ability to mess with the formula, it would be really difficult to make a good puzzle. But because the formula here is so simple, it allows you to participate in the creative aspect as well as the puzzle solving aspect. And what's even cooler is that usually if you make a puzzle, you know the solution. But because here you're basically just picking which colors go into the puzzle, you can actually try to solve the puzzle on your own. Overall, if you like matching puzzles, or maybe you just get a good hit of dopamine from putting things in their correct place, you should absolutely check out this game. It's totally free if you're willing to put up with the small banner ads they use to support the game, and if you're not, it only costs $3.50 to get rid of the ads altogether. But now, speaking of games with ads, Window Garden is probably the most mobile game we have here today. In Window Garden, you work to make, you guessed it, a beautiful window garden. You do this by buying different plants and placing them around your house on different windowsills. You then have to go take care of every plant and make sure it has enough water and sun every day. You do this by collecting sun tokens and water tokens whenever the windows are open. You then assign these tokens to a plant when you place it on the windowsill. Once you've placed and watered and sunned your plant according to its specific requirements, you then have to sit around and wait for different bugs to fly on screen, where you then tap them away and get some money. If you tap enough away, the bar at the bottom of the screen fills up, and you get a frenzy, and you just click as many bugs as you can until time runs out and collect a larger reward. You can then use that money to buy some more plants, or decor, or even unlock different rooms in the house to allow you to make even more cute little windowsills. If you don't feel like just sitting there watching your screen until a butterfly pops up, you can also play mini-games once every hour. These mini-games are a pretty basic affair. One is Whack-A-Mole, another is a reskin of Google's Dino game, and the third is one of those games where you kind of just catch stuff falling down from the sky. Pretty basic stuff. They're kind of what I would generally expect from a mobile game. I do like that they give you stuff to keep you busy, but this really is just one of those games that wants you to keep coming back after you've exhausted the frankly anemic amount of actual gameplay they have on offer, and tries to find ways to incentivize you to return. I'm not personally somebody who gets much enjoyment out of collecting a bunch of arbitrary rewards after leaving a game alone for a while, so this is one that did kind of fall flat for me. Plus, they play 100% by the playbook when it comes to ads. They make everything in the store stupid expensive and make it relatively difficult to get a lot of coins, so you're more incentivized to either spend money or watch an ad. It's not particularly egregious, but I don't like it. I find it icky, and frankly, there's just so many games out there that don't do this that I'm kind of surprised it's still so prevalent in mobile games. Yes, the meta for mobile games is for them to be free, and in that case, you need to monetize. But I feel like there are so much better ways to do it than to bake these kind of things into your game at such a core level. Overall, if you aren't bothered by that kind of thing in mobile games, this won't bother you. And it's far from the worst offender when it comes to that kind of tactic. For me personally, I was kind of hoping this would have a bit more of a focus on decorating your windowsill and a bit less focus on trying to get your money/eyeballs, but hey, maybe I was just wrong for expecting that. But now on to our last game, and this is one that's been getting quite a bit of press since it released a little bit ago. Pokémon the Card Game Pocket - Card Game. Yeah, that's its official name on the store. Now, I'm not going to be saying all that because I'm f***ing sane, so I'll be calling it Pokémon Pocket like a normal person. Name aside though, this is the much anticipated mobile app version of the Pokémon trading card game. Now, as a video game enthusiast myself, I never really got into the Pokémon card game outside of finding a few Pokémon cards on the ground at school and thinking the art was pretty. In fact, I was never really into Pokémon when it was in its prime. My family didn't have the money to buy us a Game Boy, so I never played the video games until recently, and also it was one of those games that, cool people didn't play, so aside from not being able to play it, I also didn't want to because then everybody would call me lame at school. However, the card game was, and for some people still is, a rather popular game. Like I said, I never got into it, so this was my first real introduction. At first, I didn't really understand the appeal of the app. I mean, the main focus right up front when you open it is the booster pack mechanic, which, while fun enough, gets, in my opinion, kind of boring and tedious after a couple packs. And after you've opened those packs and now have your shiny new Pokemon, now what? You just look at them? Well, something that other people talking about the game had failed to mention entirely is the fact that you can battle in the game. See, everyone I had heard talk about this app basically just talked about the booster packs and the Pokemon they got or wanted to get and all that stuff. And while I can understand the appeal of that, it didn't really seem to warrant the amount of hype that the game was getting. So I wanted to check it out, and I was quite relieved to see that it is much more than a simple booster pack opening simulator. Now, the crux of the game is still those booster packs, and that is the main way that the card game differs from the video game. Where in the video game, you have to battle wild Pokemon and catch them, in the card game, you just buy these packs, which give you random Pokemon. So it makes sense to build the app around that experience. Everything you do is towards that end. At the start of the day, you're allowed to open 2 packs. Then, after that, you have to wait 12 hours until you can open another pack, or use 12 hourglasses to speed up time. Now, as you can imagine, I was skeptical of this whole hourglass scheme right from the get-go. After all, Pokemon booster packs in the real world are notorious money sinks for people who have gambling issues, so this mechanic in the app seems specifically geared towards incentivizing you to pay for more hourglasses. And it is absolutely, unequivocally that. However, it was a pleasant surprise to find out that you don't need to spend money on the hourglasses. You can win them as rewards for leveling up or completing achievements, and they are actually quite generous with the hourglasses they give you, so I don't think it's as predatory as it may seem at first glance. However, I do think they are very heavily front-loading the hourglasses, and I suspect the further into the game that you get, the less they'll give you, so just keep in mind that you don't need to be constantly opening booster packs. There actually is more to the game than just that. And that brings me to the battles. Now, as I said, I never played the card game growing up, so it was nice to get a really lengthy and very hand-holdy tutorial as to what I was supposed to be doing, especially because the structure differs from the video games significantly. I won't explain it all here, but basically the first to 3 KOs wins, and if you win, you get some rewards, and there are different challenges you can try to complete, which will give you even more rewards. I think the battles are the most interesting part of the game, personally. They give actual stakes to which cards you get in the booster packs, and they aren't time or energy limited, so if you're really into the actual gameplay, you can just keep playing as long as you want. The matches aren't very long either, so they're actually pretty good for a short commute or if you're waiting for the bus or something. And I think the balance between strategy and RNG is pretty good. You can't simply tank a battle usually, and you do actually have to understand what's going on in order to win. Plus, the ability to battle real people adds to that challenge and depth significantly. Now, you can't trade cards yet, which, is in the name of the game, but apparently that's just a bit too complicated, so that feature is still in the oven. However, they are intending to add it, it's just not available yet. Overall, it's a good game. It's far more than I had originally thought, and I really appreciate that Nintendo is willing to kind of take a loss here. I know, they still ask for your money and use some scummy tactics to make you want to spend money, but on the whole, you don't have to, and the game is totally free to play, and it's completely possible to play without spending a dime. And you're really not at a disadvantage if you don't spend money in the game. By far, the biggest difference maker is how skilled you are when it comes to the battles. It doesn't matter if you get the rarest Pokemon in the game if you suck at the battles, and they don't give you the option to pay your way through the battles at all. All in all, I think it's a pretty solid game, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who either really likes collecting cards or liked playing the card game as a kid. I can't vouch for how faithfully it recreates the card game experience, but I had a good time playing, and I'm confident if you're interested in Pokemon, you probably will too. But that's all for today's video. That's 5 more cozy mobile games you should be checking out. I'm really glad that I was able to find a lot more games with actual substance this time. Doing this has kind of reinvigorated my interest in cozy mobile games as a whole, so let me know if you want to see more of this, and I'll definitely keep an eye out for some more of these kinds of mobile games. Other than that though, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy gaming.